In a world ravaged by ferocious werewolves, humanity teeters on the brink of extinction. Desperate survivors stumble upon a chilling discovery. A virus that transforms these unstoppable beasts into something arguably worse. The mindless undead, as they unleash this new horror in a frantic bid for survival. They face a haunting question. Have they traded one nightmare for another? Dive into a heart-pounding journey where every choice is a gamble for humanity's future, and every shadow hides a threat more terrifying than the last. Prepare to enter a world where the line between savior and destroyer blurs, in a battle of survival where the stakes are nothing more than humanity's last stand. Chapter 1. The Fall of Civilization. The world had changed. It was no longer the domain of bustling cities, teeming with life and the hum of humanity. Now it was a realm of shadows and fear, ruled by creatures of nightmare. The werewolves had taken over. It had started subtly at first, incidents reported as wild animal attacks in remote locations, but then the horror spilled into the cities. With each full moon, more and more fell prey to the werewolf's curse. The infection spread like wildfire. Every bite from these monstrous beings transformed the victim into one of them. Within months, the cities, those great hubs of civilization, had fallen. Skyscrapers, once symbols of human achievement, now stood as haunting silhouettes against the moonlit sky, their windows like lifeless eyes gazing down on the desolate streets. The nights were filled with the howls of the werewolves, echoing through the empty avenues and abandoned vehicles. What was once vibrant urban life had been replaced by the rule of the lycanthropes. Humanity was forced to retreat. Survivors fled to rural areas, farmlands, and hidden enclaves in the mountains. These places, once considered remote and isolated, became sanctuaries for the remnants of mankind. Here, far from the ruined cities, small communities clung to life. They fortified old farms, abandoned schools, and any structure that could offer shelter. Life had become a daily struggle for survival, gathering resources by day while barricading themselves at night against the ever-present threat of a werewolf attack. Rumors swirled among the survivors. Some spoke of military safe zones, others of a group of scientists working on a cure. But as the days turned into weeks and weeks into months, hope began to dwindle. The werewolves were too many, too strong. The full moon nights were the worst. A time when the howls of the werewolves filled the air, a grim reminder of the world that was lost. This new world was a place of constant vigilance. Lookouts were stationed day and night, watching for the telltale signs of a werewolf pack on the prowl. Children grew up knowing the importance of silence and the dangers of the night. The stories of the past, of movie theaters, shopping malls, and bustling city life seemed like fairy tales from another age. In these desperate times, trust was a rare commodity. Bands of survivors occasionally crossed paths, exchanging news and supplies, but always with a wary eye. The fear of betrayal was real, not just from fellow humans, but from the possibility that one among them could be hiding the curse, waiting for the next full moon to reveal their true nature. As the first chapter of this harrowing tale closes, the stage is set for a world hanging in the balance, where the remnants of humanity are on the brink of extinction. The werewolves reign supreme in the urban jungles, their howls a haunting melody of the new world order. But among the whispers of the wind, in the heart of the rural hideouts, a flicker of hope remains. Little do the survivors know, a discovery lies waiting, one that could change the course of this apocalyptic nightmare. But with it, comes the risk of unleashing something even more terrifying than the beasts that roam the night. Chapter 2. The Journey to Hope. As the dawn broke over the rugged landscape, casting long shadows across the makeshift settlement, 3 figures huddled around a dimly lit map. They were an unlikely trio, brought together by circumstance and a shared goal to find a cure for the werewolf curse. Captain Marcus Donovan, a grizzled military veteran, ran his finger along a faded route on the map. His years in the service had prepared him for many things, but the fall of civilization was not one of them. Despite this, he remained a natural leader, his demeanor exuding a calm authority that was reassuring in these uncertain times. Beside him stood Dr. Lena Nguyen, a brilliant virologist whose research had been on the brink of breakthroughs before the world fell apart. Her eyes, once full of academic curiosity, now held a determined glint, the kind born of loss and a relentless drive to make things right. Completing the trio was Dr. Alexei Petrov, a molecular biologist with a knack for genetics. He had joined forces with Dr. Nguyen after a chance encounter, both sharing the same passion for finding a cure. Alexei's expertise was a crucial piece of the puzzle in understanding the werewolf virus. The 3 had heard whispers of a military facility deep in the heart of what was once a thriving urban center. Rumors suggested that it held research crucial to developing a cure. It was a long shot, but long shots were all they had left. Packing light but efficiently, they set out just before sunrise. Marcus led the way, his rifle always within easy reach. Lena carried a portable lab kit, essential for any samples they might find. Alexei brought up the rear, his backpack filled with electronic gadgets that might be useful in accessing the facility. The journey was fraught with danger. They traversed through dense forests and overgrown fields, avoiding the main roads that were often patrolled by werewolf packs. It was during one of these treks that they encountered their first real brush with danger. A low growl echoed through the hen trees, stopping them in their tracks. Heartbeats quickened as they crouched low, hidden in the underbrush. Through the foliage, they glimpsed the slinking forms of a werewolf pack, their eyes glowing ominously in the dim light. The tension was palpable as the creatures sniffed the air, dangerously close to their hiding spot. It was Marcus's calm, steady hand that signaled them to remain absolutely still. Minutes felt like hours until the pack moved on, leaving the trio to exhale in silent relief. As the sun began to set, they finally reached the outskirts of the facility. It was a sprawling complex, surrounded by high walls and barbed wire. Nature had begun to reclaim the once sterile grounds, with vines creeping up the sides of the buildings. Finding a way in wasn't easy. The main gates were locked and heavily fortified. It was Alexei who spotted an old drainage system, partially hidden by overgrowth. Working together, they pried open the rusted grate and made their way through the narrow tunnels. Emerging inside the compound, they found themselves in a world frozen in time. Papers were strewn about, equipment lay abandoned, and a thick layer of dust covered everything. It was an eerie reminder of how quickly everything had changed. There was no time to dwell on the past. The facility held secrets, perhaps the key to turning the tide in this relentless struggle. As they ventured deeper into the heart of the complex, the sense of anticipation grew. What they found could be their last hope, a beacon in the darkness of a world overrun by beasts. But as they were soon to discover, some secrets come with a price. Chapter 3. The Siege of Shadows. The night was clear, stars twinkling in a sky unmarred by the lights of civilization. In a secluded woodland clearing, a small band of survivors huddled around a flickering campfire, their faces etched with the weariness of constant vigilance. This was their refuge, a makeshift camp, fortified with whatever materials they could scavenge: barbed wire, wooden spikes, and an array of rudimentary alarm systems made from cans and strings. Despite their exhaustion, There was an air of camaraderie among them. They had become a family of sorts, bound together by the shared goal of survival in a world that had turned against them. Their camp, though humble, was a bastion of humanity in the midst of chaos. Suddenly, the tranquil night air was shattered by the shrill ringing of the alarm system. Panic ensued as everyone sprang into action, grabbing weapons and rushing to their defensive positions. The camp, usually so full of life and laughter, became a battleground. From the darkness of the surrounding woods, they came. Hundreds of werewolves, their eyes glowing with a feral hunger, descended upon the camp with ferocious speed. The air was filled with the sounds of snarling, growling, and the desperate cries of the survivors. The defenders fought bravely, but they were overwhelmingly outnumbered. The makeshift barricades, so carefully constructed, were torn apart like paper. Each horrific bite from the werewolves turned another human into a lycanthrope, swelling their ranks even as the human numbers dwindled. The camp, once a symbol of human resilience, was quickly overrun. Tents were ripped apart, the fire trampled underfoot, and the air filled with the scent of fear and blood. It was a massacre, swift and brutal. The werewolves moved through the camp with ruthless efficiency, leaving behind only destruction and the newly turned werewolves who rose to join their ranks. In the aftermath, the clearing that had once been a haven of hope and survival lay in ruins. The few survivors who had managed to escape disappeared into the night, carrying with them the harrowing memories of the siege and the devastating loss of their sanctuary. The night grew silent once more, the stars now witnesses to a world where humanity was not just fighting for survival, but slowly losing its very essence to the encroaching darkness. The transformation of the camp into a lair of werewolves was a chilling reminder of the relentless tide of the lycanthropic plague, a tide that was washing away the last remnants of the world as it once was. Chapter 4. The ethical dilemma. The abandoned military base, once a hive of activity and scientific inquiry, now lay in silent desolation. Captain Marcus Donovan led the way, his flashlight cutting through the darkness, revealing long corridors lined with abandoned equipment. Dr. Lena Nguyen and Dr. Alexei Petrov followed closely, their own flashlights darting around, illuminating forgotten remnants of a world lost to chaos. Their footsteps echoed in the empty halls until they reached the main laboratory. The door, ajar, creaked ominously as they pushed it open. Inside the lab was a time capsule of the last days before the collapse. Papers were scattered across desks, whiteboards filled with complex formulas, and computers stood idle, their screens dark. As they sifted through the documents, a chilling realization dawned on them. The notes detailed exhaustive research on the werewolf virus, its effects, and potential countermeasures. But one entry stood out. There was no cure for the werewolf curse. The scientists had, however, stumbled upon something else. A virus that targeted both humans and lichens. Dr. Nguyen read aloud, her voice steady but tinged with disbelief. This virus, it's unlike anything we've known. It seems to spread at an alarming rate, potentially faster than the lichen transformation. But it's not selective. It could infect the remaining human population as well. The room fell silent as the gravity of the discovery settled upon them. Captain Donovan, ever the pragmatist, was the first to break the silence. If we use this, we're no better than those who unleashed the werewolf curse. We'd be condemning what's left of humanity. Dr. Petrov, his face pale under the harsh light, added, "But if we don't, the lichens will continue to turn more humans. It's only a matter of time before we're completely overrun." The ethical dilemma hung heavily in the air. On one hand, they had the means to stop the werewolves, potentially saving countless lives. But on the other, using such a virus was a betrayal of their own humanity, risking the very people they were trying to save. Dr. Nguyen, her voice tinged with sorrow, concluded, "We're not just scientists or soldiers. We're guardians of what's left of this world. Whatever choice we make, we carry the weight of humanity's future." The team stood in the lab, surrounded by the ghosts of a once great civilization, grappling with a decision that no one should ever have to make. The fate of the world lay in their hands, and whatever path they chose, it would irreversibly alter the course of human history. The question was not just about survival, it was about what it meant to be human in a world that had lost its humanity. Chapter 5. The Unthinkable Discovery. In the midst of their heavy deliberation, a faint but distinct sound cut through the silence, a rhythmic knocking, like someone tapping on glass. Intrigued and cautious, the team followed the sound, their flashlights casting long, eerie shadows in the abandoned corridors of the facility. They moved from room to room, the sound growing steadily louder until they came upon a large, sealed glass capsule. Inside, illuminated by their flashlights, was a man, but it was immediately clear that he was no ordinary man. His skin had a ghastly pallor, his eyes were lifeless, and he moved with an unsettling, jerky motion. He was undead, a zombie, relentlessly thumping against the glass with a mindless determination. Pinned to the capsule was a note, the handwriting shaky, as if written in haste or under great stress. Captain Donovan carefully removed it, and Dr. Nguyen read it aloud. It was a message from Dr. Stephen Lestat, a name recognized by the team as one of the leading researchers in lycanthropic studies. The note revealed a harrowing truth.
"We have finally infected a werewolf with the virus. It is contained in this capsule. The virus took away the werewolf curse, but the werewolf has turned into this thing, a zombie. The creature does not care if you are human or wolf, it wants to feed on you. But should a werewolf bite this thing, they too will change into another zombie. I could not bring myself to unleash this upon the world. If you find this, may you have the courage to do what I could not."
The team stood in stunned silence, the implications of Dr. Lestat's message sinking in. The zombie before them was not just a mindless creature, it was potentially the key to stopping the werewolf plague. But the cost was unimaginable. A new horror unleashed upon the world. Dr. Petrov broke the silence, his voice a mixture of awe and fear. This could end the werewolf threat, but at what price? We'd be replacing one curse with another. Captain Donovan, his eyes fixed on the zombie, replied grimly, "It's a decision between two evils. Do we let humanity fall to werewolves, or do we risk it all on a chance to fight back, even if it means unleashing a new terror?" Dr. Nguyen added, "Dr. Lestat couldn't do it. He chose to contain the threat, rather than release it. Are we prepared to make a different choice?" The weight of the decision hung heavily in the air. The zombie in the capsule, a grotesque testament to human desperation and scientific meddling, represented a solution as dangerous as the problem it was meant to solve. The team stood at a crossroads, facing a choice that would determine the fate of what remained of the world. In their hands was a weapon of unimaginable power, but its use required a courage that bordered on recklessness, a courage to possibly save humanity or damn it further. Chapter 6. The Desperate Gambit. The tense silence of the lab was shattered by a distant haunting howl, followed by a crescendo of noises, crashes, growls, and the sound of paws pounding against the facility's floors. Captain Marcus Donovan's voice cut through the chaos, decisive and grim. "They found us. We need to make a choice now. We either die here or let this thing out. Outside the lab, the werewolves were a storm of fur and fangs. They had picked up the scent of the humans and were now relentlessly hunting them down. The facility, once a bastion of human ingenuity, became a hunting ground for these merciless predators. As the werewolves crashed into the main lab, a lone figure caught their attention. A shambling, mindless zombie, wandering aimlessly amidst the chaos. Instinctively, the werewolves attacked, their bites tearing into the undead flesh. But within seconds, a horrific transformation began. The werewolves that had bitten the creature started convulsing, their bodies warping and twisting until they too resumed a human form. But it was a grotesque mockery of humanity. They became shambling, mindless zombies, devoid of the power and ferocity that had once made them so formidable. From behind the safety of a locked room with a reinforced glass window, Captain Donovan, Dr. Nguyen, and Dr. Petrov watched the unfolding nightmare. More and more werewolves piled into the facility, drawn by the commotion. Each one that attacked the stumbling creatures met the same fate, their bodies undergoing the hideous transformation into the undead. The werewolves' strength and agility, which had once made them nearly invincible hunters, were now rendered moot. The newly created zombies just stumbled around aimlessly, their threat vastly different from that of the werewolves. They lacked the intelligence and purpose that had characterized the lycanthropes, becoming instead a horde of wandering husks. Captain Donovan and his team witnessed the rapid spread of the virus, a viral wildfire consuming the werewolf menace, but at a terrible cost. The sight was sobering and terrifying. They had unleashed a new horror into the world, one that, while less formidable than the werewolves, presented a chilling new reality. As the last of the werewolves fell and rose again as zombies, the lab became eerily quiet, filled only with the soft, aimless shuffling of the undead. The team was safe for the moment, but the world outside the reinforced glass had changed irrevocably. The werewolf threat might have been neutralized, but now they faced a new, unknown future with a different kind of monster, one of their own making. Chapter 7: A Dangerous Weapon. As the team surveyed the eerie stillness of the lab, Dr. Lena Nguyen's voice cut through, determined and resolute. "I need some of their blood. Those syringes over there. Let's fill them up." Captain Donovan frowned, his voice laced with concern. "It's too dangerous. We don't know enough about this virus." Despite his protest, they knew the value of this opportunity. With careful precision, they trapped one of the undead, a former werewolf now mindlessly wandering. Using makeshift tools and working with clinical efficiency, they drew multiple syringes of the creature's infected blood. After the procedure, they disposed of the undead body, ensuring no threat remained in their immediate vicinity. Dr. Nguyen then attached one of the syringes to the end of a long pole, effectively creating a spear-like weapon. This makeshift tool carried with it the potential to turn any werewolf it pierced into a zombie, a weapon of last resort. With their grim task completed, the trio made their way out of the facility, moving stealthily to avoid attracting attention. The world outside seemed even more foreboding now, a landscape fraught with dangers both known and unknown. Their journey back to camp was tense and fraught with peril. At one point, a lone werewolf, drawn by their scent or perhaps just wandering aimlessly, lunged at them from the shadows. Reacting swiftly, Dr. Nguyen thrust her syringe-equipped spear at the beast. The creature convulsed as the virus took hold, transforming before their eyes into a shambling undead. Quickly adapting to this new turn of events, they restrained the zombie, tying its hands and fashioning a makeshift catch pole around its neck. This allowed them to keep it at a distance, using it both as a shield and a deterrent against any other werewolves they might encounter on their journey. The journey back to camp was a surreal procession, a small group of humans escorting a captured zombie through a world that was no longer theirs. The undead creature, once a symbol of terror, was now a tool in their desperate fight for survival. As they neared their camp, the realization of what they had done began to sink in. They had crossed a line, venturing into uncharted, ethical territory. The virus they carried, both in the syringe and in the form of their captive zombie, was a double-edged sword, a weapon against the werewolves, but also a potential threat to what remained of humanity. Their arrival at camp would mark not just a return, but the beginning of a new, uncertain chapter in their struggle for survival. They had new hope, but at what cost? This question lingered in the air, as palpable as the tension that surrounded them. Chapter 8. The Unwelcome Truth. Back at the camp, a place that once represented a haven of safety and unity, the atmosphere was now heavy with tension and unease. The camp leader, a stern and resilient figure who had guided the survivors through countless perils, confronted the team about their controversial decision. "Why would you unleash such a thing upon an already dying world?" the leader demanded, his voice tinged with a mix of anger and disbelief. Dr. Lena Nguyen stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "We've seen what the werewolves can do. They're fast, strong, and nearly impossible to kill. We can at least outrun, outthink, and possibly survive against the undead. But against the werewolves, we stand no chance." Before the leader could rebuke them further, two strangers, weary and disheveled, stumbled into the camp. They were survivors from another hidden camp, one that had been mentioned in hopeful whispers around the fire. The newcomers told a harrowing tale of a brutal massacre, their well-fortified and armed settlement falling within mere seconds to a relentless werewolf assault. "The werewolves are too powerful," one of the survivors gasped, his eyes haunted by the horrors he had witnessed. "Our defenses meant nothing. If they find you, there's no escape." The stark reality of their words silenced any further debate. The camp, despite its defenses, was not as secure as they had believed. As the camp absorbed this grim news, Captain Donovan noticed a commotion at the edge of the camp. He moved to a vantage point that overlooked a small city in the distance. Through his binoculars, he witnessed a staggering scene. A horde of undead, the very creatures they had released into the world, were shuffling into the city. Almost immediately, they were set upon by a pack of werewolves. The ensuing chaos was a macabre dance of death and transformation. Each werewolf that attacked the undead convulsed and twisted, soon joining the ranks of the shambling zombies. For a moment, Captain Donovan couldn't tear his eyes away from the spectacle. It was both horrifying and mesmerizing, a testament to the drastic lengths they had gone to for a chance at survival. As he lowered his binoculars, a heavy silence fell over the camp. The sight of the city, now a battleground between werewolf and undead, was a stark reminder of the new reality they had created. There was no going back now. The world they knew had been irrevocably altered, and the consequences of their actions would ripple through what remained of humanity. The camp, once a beacon of hope and solidarity, now faced a future fraught with uncertainty and fear. But amidst the despair, there was a glimmer of grim determination. If they were to survive in this new world, they would need to adapt, to evolve, and to face the consequences of their choices head-on. The night closed in, the campfire flickering like the last ember of a world that once was, now giving way to a future unknown and unwritten. Chapter 9. Clash of Monsters and the Rising Tide. In the crumbling city, the night air was thick with the sounds of a grotesque battle. Werewolves, once the apex predators, found themselves under siege by the relentless advance of the undead. Each savage bite from the zombies transformed the werewolves, stripping them of their power and turning them into more of the shambling horde. Amidst this chaos, one werewolf stood out. It was a monstrous creature, twice the size of its kin, with a cunning intelligence shining in its eyes. This alpha werewolf, a giant among its kind, surveyed the pandemonium with a calculating gaze. It understood the deadly implications of the zombies' bites. Instead of engaging with teeth, it used its razor-sharp claws, tearing through the undead with a ferocity and precision that was terrifying to behold. Its agility was unmatched, its strength seemingly otherworldly. It carved a swath through the horde, flesh and decay flying in its wake. With a final defiant howl, the alpha werewolf leaped onto a nearby rooftop, its powerful muscles propelling it effortlessly. In a few bounds, it disappeared into the shadows of the night, leaving behind the carnage it had wrought. It was a survivor, adapting to the new threat in a way that its transformed pack could not. Meanwhile, back at the base, the survivors faced a new, imminent danger. A horde of zombies, the very monsters they had unleashed, was now making its way up the hill towards their sanctuary. The shambling mass moved slowly, but with an unrelenting determination. The camp, once a place of safety, now braced for an onslaught. The survivors scrambled to fortify their defenses, but the sense of despair was palpable. They had sought to turn the tide against the werewolves, but in doing so, they had brought a different kind of doom upon themselves. As the zombies neared, their groans and the dragging of their feet grew louder, a grim soundtrack to the impending siege. The survivors gripped their weapons tightly, faces set in grim determination. They had faced the terror of werewolves. Now they must confront the consequence of their desperate gamble. An army of the undead, their numbers growing with each werewolf they had turned. The night sky, once a canvas for the stars, now bore witness to a world caught in the grip of monsters of their own making. The survivors stood ready, not just to fight for their lives, but for the very soul of what it meant to be human in a world that had forgotten its humanity. The battle lines were drawn, and the night ahead promised only darkness and despair. Final chapter: the cost of survival. As the relentless tide of the undead advanced up the hill, the survivors steeled themselves for the inevitable clash. The camp, once a place of refuge and hope, now echoed with the sounds of preparation for war. This was not just a battle for survival. It was a battle to uphold the remnants of their humanity in a world overrun by nightmares. The first wave of zombies crashed against their defenses with mindless ferocity. The survivors fought with a desperation born of knowing that this was a fight they could not afford to lose. Captain Donovan led the charge, his military training and unyielding resolve turning him into a formidable force against the shambling horde. Dr. Lenan Nguyen and Dr. Alexei Petrov, those scientists by trade, fought with equal determination, using every tool and makeshift weapon at their disposal. The battle was brutal and exhausting, but unlike the werewolves, the zombies were slow and predictable. It gave the survivors an edge they had never had before. After hours that felt like an eternity, the tide of undead began to wane. One by one, the zombies fell, until the ground was littered with their lifeless forms. As the sun began to rise, casting its light on the aftermath of the night's battle, the survivors took a moment to catch their breath. They had won, against odds that would have been insurmountable had their foes been werewolves. There was a sense of cautious relief in the air. The decision to unleash the zombie virus, as harrowing as it was, had given them a fighting chance. For the first time since the werewolf plague began, They felt a glimmer of hope, a sense that they might survive this new, twisted world they had helped create. But their respite was short-lived. As they surveyed the horizon, their hearts sank. Another horde of undead, larger and more relentless than the first, was making its way toward the camp. The reality of their situation settled in like a cold, unyielding weight. This was their new world, a world where victory was fleeting and every triumph was followed by a greater challenge. The survivors braced themselves once again, knowing that this cycle of battle and brief respite might be their fate for days, months, maybe even years to come. They had chosen this path over a world dominated by werewolves, but the cost of that choice was a never-ending struggle against an enemy that knew no fatigue, no fear, and no mercy. As the final chapter of their story closed, the survivors stood together, united in their resolve. They had made their choice, and now they would face the consequences, fighting not just for their lives, but for the essence of what it meant to be human in a world that had lost its way. The end was not a conclusion, but a statement on the enduring spirit of humanity, a testament to the courage, resilience, and indomitable will to survive against all odds. The story ended not with peace, but with the determination to keep fighting for as long as they had breath in their bodies. The war changed. The curse that began with blood has turned into something far worse. The Lycans thought they were hunters, but now they run from the dead. In the ashes of science and superstition, one truth remains. Every darkness gives birth to another. And soon, something older will awaken, not from rage, but from need. For the living are dwindling, and there are beings in this world that cannot drink from the dead. In the next chapter, they will rise, not to rule, but to restore the balance of hunger itself. You see, even monsters need a purpose. So prepare for Crimson Dawn Episode 3, the remastered version, Rise of the Elders.
Who is Professor Shadow? A storyteller born from darkness, a craftsman of fear and of truth, but before the shadows there was light. He doesn't just speak of monsters, he's fought them. A champion of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. On the mats he learned what power truly cost, and how control can conquer chaos. Those lessons never left him. They became his stories. Every monster he writes is a reflection of that struggle. Discipline versus destruction, will versus surrender. Now the fighter has become the voice in the dark. The man who faced real battles tells us why we fear imaginary ones.